The room went silent the moment his grandmother stood up. Elena felt her chair scrape against the marble floor as she was gently guided away from the head table. Her hands trembled around the small clutch purse in her lap. 200 guests in tailored suits and diamond earrings watched as she was walked toward a small round table near the kitchen doors, the one usually reserved for event staff. Her husband, Marcus, didn't even look back. He was already laughing at something his business partner Vanessa had whispered in his ear, his hand resting a little too comfortably on the small of her back. Elena sat down at the servant table, smoothed her simple blue dress, and folded her hands in her lap like she'd been taught to do since she was a little girl. Quiet, composed, invisible. But 81-year-old Eleanor Whitfield saw everything. And when she rose from her seat at the head table, cane in hand, the entire ballroom went still. Because Eleanor didn't just own the company hosting this gala. She built it from a single sewing machine in a garage 60 years ago. She looked at her grandson. Then she looked at the empty seat beside him, and what she said next made the room forget how to breathe. But to understand why Eleanor did what she did next, you have to go back 3 years. To the small diner where all of this began. If this story moves you, tap that like button right now. It helps more people discover stories about real love and real dignity. The kind that doesn't need a spotlight to shine. Elena Reyes had never wanted a wealthy husband. She wanted a kind one. She was working double shifts at a roadside diner in a town so small it didn't have a single traffic light, saving every spare dollar to help her younger brother finish nursing school. She wore the same 3 sweaters on rotation through 2 winters, just so he wouldn't have to. Marcus walked into that diner during a work trip, exhausted and irritable after a canceled flight. Elena brought him coffee before he even asked, along with a folded napkin and a quiet smile. He later told her it was the first time in years someone had looked at him and not his bank account. They married 18 months later in a small backyard ceremony. Elena wore her mother's altered wedding dress. Marcus promised, in front of 30 guests, that he would never let her feel small. But promises made in quiet backyards don't always survive the noise of boardrooms and galas. As Marcus climbed higher in his family's company, the distance between them grew wider. Business dinners replaced date nights. Vanessa, sharp-tongued and expensively dressed, became his strategic partner. First in meetings, then in dinners, Elena wasn't invited to. Elena noticed the change, but she said nothing. She kept showing up. She kept ironing his shirts, remembering his coffee order, sending encouraging texts before his big presentations. Not because she was naive, but because she still believed in the man from the diner. She didn't know it yet, but tonight, everything was about to change. Tonight was the biggest gala of the year, the 40th anniversary of Whitfield Industries, hosted in honor of Eleanor herself. Marcus had specifically requested the seating chart be adjusted. He told the event coordinator quietly that Elena would be more comfortable at a smaller table, somewhere out of frame, somewhere the cameras wouldn't catch her simple dress next to Vanessa's designer gown. He didn't expect his grandmother to walk in 15 minutes early. Eleanor saw the new seating chart before anyone briefed her on it. She said nothing at first. She simply watched, the way she'd watched her grandson grow from a barefoot boy who once gave his lunch to a classmate into a man who now measured people by the label on their dress. She watched Elena get quietly escorted to the back. She watched Marcus not even flinch. And she made a decision that would change everything before the first toast was even poured. Eleanor gripped her cane and walked, slowly but with unmistakable purpose, straight toward the servant table. The room noticed. Conversations died mid-sentence. Waiters froze with trays in hand. Even the string quartet in the corner let their bows drift to silence, one by one, as they realized something was happening that no rehearsal had prepared them for. She stopped in front of Elena and extended her hand. "Get up, sweetheart," Eleanor said, her voice steady despite her age. "You're sitting in the wrong seat." Elena blinked, unsure if she'd heard correctly. "Mrs. Whitfield, Eleanor," she corrected gently. "And I mean it. Come with me." She walked Elena, trembling, confused, still holding her small clutch purse, all the way back to the head table, to the seat right beside Marcus. The seat that, 20 minutes earlier, had been quietly reassigned to Vanessa. Vanessa stood up fast, her heels clicking against the marble. "I'm sorry. Is there a problem?" Eleanor didn't even look at her. She simply gestured to the chair. "Sit down, dear. This seat belongs to my grandson's wife." Marcus spinally looked up, color draining from his face. "Grandma, I can explain." "You don't need to explain to me," Eleanor said, loud enough for the entire ballroom to hear. "I watched you walk your wife to the back of the room like she was an inconvenience. I watched her sit there quietly, with more grace in her spine than half the people in this room have in their entire bodies." She turned to face the crowd, still holding Elena's hand. 40 years ago, I built this company with nothing but a sewing machine and a promise to myself that I would never forget where I came from and I would never let money convince me that people without it mattered less. She paused, her eyes glassy, but her voice unshaken. "Tonight, I was going to announce my successor. Many of you assumed it would be my grandson." She let the silence sit for a moment. "It's not." Marcus opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "Effective tonight," Eleanor continued. "Full ownership and controlling shares of Whitfield Industries will transfer to the one person in this family who has shown me, again and again, that character isn't something you perform for a room. It's something you carry when no one's watching." She looked down at Elena, whose eyes were now filled with tears. "Elena Reyes Whitfield, my granddaughter-in-law, my heir." The ballroom erupted into stunned murmurs. Somewhere near the back, a single waiter began to clap, and slowly, table by table, the applause spread like wildfire. Not out of politeness, but because everyone in that room had just watched real justice happen in real time. Vanessa quietly slipped out during the applause. She was never seen at another Whitfield event again. Marcus sat frozen, humiliation and shame washing over his face. But Eleanor wasn't finished. Later that night, once the crowd had thinned, she sat down beside her grandson. Her voice softened. "I'm not doing this to destroy you," she told him. "I'm doing this to wake you up. You have a chance most people never get. To fix this. But only if you're willing to become the man she married, instead of the man you let yourself become." Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked across the room at Elena, laughing softly with one of the event staff who used to serve her water at the back table. The same warmth she gave everyone, regardless of where they sat. For the first time in years, he felt something other than ambition. He felt ashamed. And underneath that shame, quietly, something like hope. Weeks later, Marcus stepped down from his executive role. Not in disgrace, but by choice. He spent months rebuilding trust, showing up in the small, unglamorous ways he'd forgotten mattered. Elena didn't take the company to punish him. She took it because Eleanor was right. She'd earned it. And slowly, table by table, meeting by meeting, Marcus started becoming someone worth sitting beside again. Elena never wanted revenge. She never wanted an empire either. All she ever wanted was to be seen, not for what she wore or where she sat, but for who she was underneath it. And in the end, that was worth more than any seat at any table. If you believe real class isn't about status, but about how you treat people when no one's watching, comment "real class" below. And if the story touched you, give it a like. It helps stories like Elena's reach the people who need to hear them most.